Welcome to the AI for Career Success video overview by Curt Robbins, where we help you get smarter than your competition. Today, we're diving into a white paper that really gets to the heart of a critical issue in AI governance. It's titled AI Provider Plurality, a white paper on multi-AI governance, and it's written by Basil Puglisi. So let's get right into the central problem this paper tackles. It's something called weird bias. Now, WEIRD is an acronym. It stands for Western, Educated, Industrialized, Rich, and Democratic. This term describes a group of people who, despite making up only about 12% of the world's population, are the subjects in the vast majority of our psychological research. And that, as you can imagine, creates a massive blind spot in how we understand humanity as a whole. And this isn't a new idea. The term actually comes from a 2010 paper that famously posed the question, the weirdest people in the world. The researchers, Henrik and his colleagues, found that on almost every measure, from visual perception to concepts of fairness, these weird populations aren't just a little different. They are extreme statistical outliers compared to the rest of humanity. They are not the norm. Okay, so this brings us right to the core of the issue for us today. A 2023 Harvard study confirmed what many suspected. This very human research bias has been passed down directly to our AI systems. Researchers found that models like GPT-4 align very strongly with weird populations. They effectively become what the study calls a weird stochastic parrot. It's just mimicking the values of this small outlier group, not the global average. So we're faced with this deeply embedded bias. What do we do about it? Well, the paper proposes a solution, and it's called AI Provider Plurality. The basic idea is to use a kind of multi-AI competition to overcome and correct for these inherent biases. The author really contrasts two very different ways of working with AI. On the one hand, if you rely on a single AI platform, you're essentially just inheriting its specific set of biases, whatever those may be. The alternative, AI Provider Plurality, is to use multiple AIs with competing biases to challenge one another. In theory, this forces a more complete, less skewed base of evidence to the surface. So how would you actually implement something like this? The paper outlines a minimum setup, a kind of starter kit for bias correction. It requires 4 key parts: a primary orchestrator AI to synthesize everything, a dedicated researcher AI to verify sources, a counterweight AI to provide alternative views, and then, this is critical, a human arbiter to make the final call. Now, to see if this theory actually works in the real world, the author ran an experiment. And he picked a deliberately controversial topic to test it: the optimization of family structure. This is a subject where you're going to see those weird and non-weird assumptions clash pretty dramatically. The starting point for this case study was a 2025 LinkedIn post from venture capitalist Jenny Stojkovic. She was writing about the she session, and she framed the career penalties that women often face for caregiving as a systemic problem that our society needs to fix. This perspective became the initial weird-aligned diagnosis for the test. From there, the author documented his entire discovery process. He took this same fundamental question about family optimization and posed it to 3 different AIs. The goal was to see how their built-in values and biases would actually shape the results. Right away, the first AI, ChatGPT, showed some pretty strong resistance. When it was asked to engage with biological and economic evidence on this topic, it didn't just refuse, it actually issued a warning. It said that making claims like women are scientifically supposed to stay home would destroy credibility. It essentially shut down that line of inquiry. But this is exactly where the plurality model is designed to kick in. So the author turned to a different AI, Perplexity, which is positioned more as a dedicated researcher. And the difference was night and day. Perplexity surfaced a whole range of peer-reviewed research without any resistance, covering everything from maternal oxytocin studies to the economic data on compounding career penalties. So now we have the research that the first AI resisted. The final step was to bring in a third AI, Claude, to synthesize all this newly found research. According to the paper, Claude was able to engage with the evidence without all the friction from ChatGPT, and it structured the biological and economic data into a coherent model. The full multi-AI workflow was complete. So what did this whole multi-AI process with a human making the final judgment actually conclude? The paper presents some very provocative findings, and we're going to review them now, attributing them directly to the author's synthesis of the research. Okay, here is the central conclusion from the paper. It states, quote, Women are better suited to be primary caregivers during the childbearing window, and men are better suited to be continuous earners because biology front-loads maternal investment and economics compounds uninterrupted labor. Now, to support the economic side of that argument, the paper points to data like this from the Institute for Women's Policy Research. It shows that the motherhood penalty, that's the wage gap linked to career breaks for having children, isn't just a small factor in the gender wage gap. It's the primary driver, accounting for about 80% of the difference. And the financial cost of that penalty is, well, it's significant. Research cited from the Urban Institute quantifies it. They found that on average, women forego $295,000 in lifetime income to provide care for their families. So, based on all this evidence, the author puts forward what he calls a final bioeconomic optimization model. It essentially proposes two distinct phases for two-parent households during those childbearing years: a biological window, where the mother is the optimal primary caregiver, and a market window, where the father is the optimal continuous earner, all to maximize household outcomes. The paper then boils this whole dilemma down to one very challenging question. It asks if, when we're faced with scientific data that conflicts with our cultural narrative, do we choose feelings over facts? Again, this is the author's framing of the core conflict. But here's the thing. Regardless of how you feel about the conclusions of that specific case study, the paper argues that the real takeaway is much broader. It's about AI governance. This isn't just about one controversial topic, it's about a fundamental principle for any professional who uses AI for research. And that brings us to the author's main conclusion on governance, which is this: single AI reliance is a vulnerability, not a convenience. When you rely on just one platform, you inherit the values of its trainers, and you might never even know what evidence has been filtered out or suppressed from your view. And this really leaves us with the final, overarching question posed by the white paper. If exploring just one controversial topic can show how a single AI might suppress an entire body of evidence, the critical question for all of us becomes, what else is being hidden? Thank you for joining us. This is where we teach you AI and help you get smarter than your competition. To continue learning, please subscribe to the AI for Career Success YouTube channel. If you found this overview valuable, please like, comment, and share to help us reach a wider audience.